26.
26. Waphelele uthi he's in.
Good evening. This is Pika Environment. Good evening. We're running a session from our East London office. Good evening, all.
Good evening. Coming to you live from the East London ITZ. This is Dalupolo Ma'au from Paita. So with me, I've got Usimvile Zimeme. And today, guess what? It's the 26th of July, which is a Wednesday. And today we've got a few lovely speakers on board. We've got Kuhle Yozi. We've got Sisi Pomdaga. We've got Onwaba Nopitwana and Apelele Nongemani. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Hi, Dalu. Thank you.
Yes. Today we'll be discussing, as you all know, we're discussing robotics. Are you still there, guys?
We're still here, Dalu.
Yes.
Oh, okay, yes. So today we're discussing robotics, and we've also been hearing that Pacta has been up to great things in terms of robotics and giving back to the community in terms of affording training for school kids and all that. Could you kindly fill me in, Mr. Nongemane Apelen? Could you kindly fill me in on your understanding of robotics? What is robotics for you? And I've heard great news that you've also mentored kids all the way to a competition in Pumalanga this year. So yeah, could you just fill me in on that?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Once again, my name is Apeleno Kemane, and greetings to all the members of our organization. My understanding of the robotics study, I would say that I believe, in fact, is the study of mechanical and electrical engineering with part of physics and computer science. So in the program that was hosted in Pumalanga University by Mike Seta, where I was participating in as a mentor as a mentor of the JSS school, where I was mentoring a group of students who were focused on building a project, which was a robot sewing arm. Basically, my stake in the work was that I was focused on the computer science part, where basically I majored in the software engineering processes. When you talk about software simulation, where they were using the Arduino IDE regarding also the motors that they had used for their project. So during the initial phases, we were assigned by Mr. Mdwaba and Prof. Nobet Chere. I, I I believe he's not here. So what happened was that if ever I were to get into detail with the with all the processes, what happened was that in the initial stages, as the program was focused basically on rural schools to have them exposed to these kinds of resources and knowledge, and that the world is a really broad place, and it's not only what they may see around in their environment, so that they could be able to be enlightened and more goal driven for bigger things and not be limited according to to their surrounding environments, so that they
Mm.
could be motivated basically. So the challenges that they had faced there was that they struggled to receive equipment in time. So I had to advise them to make use of cardboard in order for them to build their robot arm. So then
Mm.
they went on and did that. And through that process, they got to learn a lot, as they had to do it the very hardest way possible, as
Yeah.
compared to other schools that were also participating in the project.
Mm.
Because mind you, as much as the program was focused on rural schools, there were also some modesty schools.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
which were from privileged backgrounds. So
Mm.
with that, as they were faced with, they did their project and managed to build their project and went to 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 present. And before a day or two, their presentation, it was then that they had received their equipment. So what happened there is that all groups were given a day before the final presentation of their prototypes. So they had like a day to assemble and
Mm.
assimilate their project. So they managed to do that because from the experience that they gained
Mm.
from having to go the hard way
Yeah, and
in
build their own robot arm with cardboard.
Yes. So what happened is that I also got to learn a lot, as in terms of my field of study, which also relates with computer science and software engineering, and they also got to learn a lot and got to be exposed to a lot of knowledge that will really come in handy for them in the future. And also that in every challenges, one must be able to look on the bright side and not also always focus on the negative part of things that they are faced with. So
Mm.
yeah, it was a
But
really
now,
beautiful experience. uh,
but quick
uh,
question, Mr. Nakemani.
yes.
Quick question. So, setting aside the challenges that was faced in the process of taking part in the competition and in the process of the mentorship of the kids, what would you say is the one thing that actually stood out for you from the experience that you were exposed to?
Thank you, sir. So my highlight of the moment was actually what I was trying to explain. I'll just try and say a lot in a few words. So what I was trying to explain as for my highlight of the whole
Mm.
experience was that it was the experience that I tried to demonstrate to them that they shouldn't be 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 be, be brought down by what they were faced with. That is the delays in receiving
Challenges,
equipment.
yes.
They should instead focus on the manner that this is an opportunity to even learn a lot more than they would have if ever they received their equipment in time. And just
That's good.
before the presentations commenced, when they received their equipment and managed to build their prototype in time, as they received it late. It was there that I saw fit that actually this was a manifestation of what I was, when I thought I was motivating them to keep pushing as hard as they could possibly can. And then they could also see what I was trying to say to them, as they really saw that they could, like, they got flexible, they got flexible in
Mm.
the field. And like you could tell that they learned a lot, really, for sure.
Mm. Thank you, Mr.
Yes.
Nakemani. Well said, well said. Quick one, Onwab. How do you then, I mean, you've heard Mr. Nakemani
Done.
speaking about the challenges that they faced,
Pardon?
and can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Yeah, I'm saying you've heard Mr. Nokemane speaking and addressing that they face certain challenges, and mind you, they were mentoring kids from a rural background, whereas those kids were competing with some kids from Model C schools. So, how do you then think that we can best bridge the gap between um, the kids in the rural space and the kids from the Model C space when it comes to robotics?
I think we can bridge that. Okay, since Paitane is adopting a school in one of the locations there, I think that's to teach robotics. I think that's one of the ways in which we can bridge the gap between Model C schools and disadvantaged schools. I think that the initiative that Pike took in creating that project whereby they adopt a certain school and then teach those kids about robotics. That's a way of bridging the gap because we know most kids from disadvantaged schools don't really have access to information as compared to kids that go to model C schools. And that is in the sense of at home, maybe they don't have Wi-Fi, their degree of exposure, and also the determination that their teachers have, it's quite different. So I think initiatives such as the one that PITA is partaking, would actually bridge the gap between the two schools.
Yeah, indeed. That is very much true. And, it's so amazing when you go to these schools with such programs and you see the joy in the teachers' eyes because they were so excited. I was there myself. They're very much excited to hear that there is a company like Pacta that's actually taking a stand to address the imbalances of life when it comes to tech for kids in school. And um, as much as Pacta is trying their best to address these issues, it becomes difficult again because you need to reflect also on the fact that companies like Pacta are still non-profit organizations, and you go to these schools, you find out that they don't have access to computers, they don't have access to the internet. It then now becomes a problem because when you are coming to help, at least you need to assist on top of something that is already there. So it's actually quite a challenge. But yeah, Sisipo, what's your take, Sisi, on
Also,
robots? Oh, you can go. You can go. That's fine. We'll be back to you just now,
okay,
Sisipo.
I wanted to add something. Okay, I should talk after 6 people or now?
No, no, you can continue.
Okay,
You
continue.
can
Okay.
go.
What okay. What I noticed when I was answering your question is that as I think I thought of what Mr. Mdaba usually says that and also and likes to impart on us that we are the change. We can be the change we want to see. Because at the end of the day, okay, what we are doing at Pike by adopting that school, it's proof that if we want to see change within the Eastern Cape, then it's up to us to
Starts
be
with
the
you.
change.
That's true.
So it's
Starts
up
with
to
you.
us as individuals also to do the little that we can do. Maybe go to a school where I'm from Butterworth, most maybe I can go to Butterworth, then introduce robotics. You see,
And I did hear also
follow
that
this.
actually, PACTA also is the program that PACTA is introducing in schools. I don't know if you guys are aware. PACTA is getting the robots for the school as well. So the robots that the kids will be working on will be provided by PACTA, you know. Um, yeah, so they'll be taught robotics right from scratch. And these are people that are from a previously disadvantaged background in the sense that there's no exposure to computers. CAT as a subject is not offered in the school. So you guys, some of you are going to still be mentors to those kids. So it'll take quite some time for them to grasp the concepts and get to terms with the systems, and from working with the sensors, the simulators, and everything. It's going to take a bit of time for them, but it's a great initiative. Kuhle, what's your takes? What do you think? Robotics is today's topic.
I think it's a good thing. Robotics. I mean, they are our future. Not even our future, but our present. Already we are exposed to robotics. A lot of companies are using them, but I also feel like, are we ready? As a country, are we ready for robotics? That's my
That's
concern.
actually a good question to ask.
Yeah, because
Because we can go
as a country, we're not even a developed country. We're still developing. So there's a lot. The people are gonna lose jobs. We know that robotics are very efficient. They're precise. They do not get tired. So I'm a bit concerned. I think I'm a bit concerned about us as a country being ready for them to fully take charge on everything.
But now, I get your concern, right? But have you thought of it and perhaps looked at it from this perspective, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
Robotics coming into maybe the automotive industry or farming, especially in the automotive
Mm-hmm.
industry, um, they reduce human error, right?
Yes.
And they're quite efficient and they speed up the production,
Yes.
and or you've seen what your IDZ Mercedes-Benz production lines used to look like. You'd have
Yes.
a lot of people lining up there, and now you find out that in a space of huge hall, it's just 3 or 4 machines working towards the coupling the vehicles, right? And here's the thing:
Mm-hmm.
they increase efficiency. Remember, and also remember that the C class is produced in East London, and
Mm-hmm.
it is exported. So the more of those are produced, the higher the exports. So that means it also helps improve the economy in a way. And
Yes.
yes, shy away from the fact that everything has its own pros and cons, that we can look into.
Yes.
And as much as um, robotics could be a problem or a threat when it comes to manual labor, but they're here to stay. I mean, you look at the
Yes.
world now
Yeah.
in the 4I, we can't really fight it. This is why PICTA comes up with initiatives like adopting school to teach kids into robotics. Yes, most things are going to be, most hard labor is going to be reduced. The number of laborers that take part in hard labor is going to be reduced.
Yes.
People will be sent home. But I think at the end of the day, it is for the best and it is necessary. Because if we're going to sit and say that, no, we will not go into or advance to robotics, then what sort of nation are we going to be and how are we going to compete with these other great nations that are out there? You see, so
Yeah.
that's just other things to take into consideration. In terms of academics, I would say that in terms of uh, being ready in the state of academics, I don't think we are, because we need to consider, we need to look at our curriculum. You know, are these curriculum offered in schools? Our kids growing up with these curriculum right from the fundamental phases of school? Which is not the case. You only find robotics in primary school when you go to private schools. And I believe that the government has recently been introducing robotics to high schools and public schools. They've just recently started that, if not last year, probably a year before that. you know. But now we need to go back and look at how can we best blend, integrate ourselves with these systems. How do we make sure that, farm robotics in agriculture are a thing in your village. I think that's my own opposing view to the state of readiness in terms of bringing robotics into the picture as a nation. I don't know what you have to say, and I'm still here to listen.
Are you saying in like in the agricultural industry?
Could you state the question?
No, I wanted you to repeat your question because I didn't really understand what you're
No,
implying.
it's not really a question. I was just saying that that's my own opinion in terms of the state of readiness, in
Oh,
terms of
okay.
integration of robotics in our space as the nation.
Mm-hmm.
If we were to talk about robotics as in having humanoid that will be sweeping the streets and all those things, yeah, that would be a totally different case altogether. But when it comes to manufacturing, automotive, farming, I believe it is necessary. That is my own opposing view. Sisipo, what do you think, sis?
Yes, I'm agreeing with you, Dalu, because when it comes to the agriculture side, I think it's the robotics are advantageous because there's a lot of work that human can do.
Yeah, that requires a lot of strength.
Yes, that requires a lot of strength. So robotics in the agricultural side, they make things easier.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And I've seen most chicken farms now, they use incubation systems because we consuming quite a lot of chicken. So they use the egg incubators to hatch eggs, into birds, into chicks, and then they are moved to where they'll be kept and fed until they grow to full live chickens. And in the agriculture, quite interesting, even when it comes to milking cows, most dairy farms are using robots. They don't just, they don't really need manual labor in that regard. I mean, think about a farm that is as big as Clover, for example. If they were to say that they will not automate their systems in terms of operating the dairy farm, so do you mean that they would have different people lining up to milk cows? I think that's where robots come in to make the whole thing more efficient. And remember, robots are fitted with sensors and cameras. They know how much pressure is enough. They know um, even how not to harm the animal when it comes to milking, and even when picking fruits. Robots you go to Cape Town, some farms are using them for in their grapevines. So they know how to pick the grapes without actually destroying them due to the sensors. And of course, that's where you guys come in because remember, uh, the structure is there. Then the software is the one that's going to tell the robot the rest, of which is your field, obviously. So that's where the programming comes in. That's where the coding comes in. That's where your machine learning kicks in. You know. So yes, Mr. Nokemana, are you still with us, sir?
Yes, I'm still here. I'm still here, sir.
Yes. What is your own take on robotics in agriculture, especially in the Eastern Cape?
Or my take in that context of robotics is that I believe it could really benefit the sector and really contribute a lot to the economy as it will at some point uh, decrease a bit of human labor, and as you might see in most factories and farms that are in the field of agriculture, most of them, in fact, or I should say, some of them, make use of you know these kind of technologies that have to do with robotics to do their work. As you will notice that they work in large fields. So they they
That's
they
true.
they make use of these machinery equipments to do most of the work. Like, if ever it were to be compared to these kind of mechanical engineering sectors. But as for agricultural sectors, I believe it will play a lot of role and be beneficial a lot too.
Yes, and I've seen in the Eastern Cape, especially in the Xinsa region, and if you're taking the Port Alfred route to PE as well, they actually using drones now for crop monitoring. So instead of having people walking around your whole farm, they are making use of drones. They just fly drones over the farm and monitor whatever is going on there. And you know, when it comes to farming, there's a lot to be done. And remember, you're dealing with vast amounts of land and vast amounts of crops for one, two to five people to go around. So robotics become quite essential. And even when it comes to the automotive industry, because just imagine if they were to say that cars are still built through the manual ways. So now imagine having to lift up engines, having to lift up gearbox and fit all those things. I think the last time we had a presentation at the office, I did show you guys a video where we were producing an A class where everything was done and fitted within a space of, I think, about 10 to 15 minutes, right? Of which the dashboard was in, the gearbox was in, the whole wiring harness was in, and it was just quite quick. So that's the beauty of robotics. But now, um, in terms of obviously these robotics now, they also being fitted with an element of AI, where they can actually sense and they believe they believe their feelings now due to AI and machine learning. So now tell me something. You guys perhaps think that robots can eventually in the future replace mankind?
Definitely they can, because if you can look at most of the things now, they are done by robots. For instance, let's take maybe KFC or McDonald's, for instance. If you can see, KFC um has those computers next to the entrance
Yeah,
where you
yeah, yeah.
for that
Mm,
to use, you have to cut staff number, you see.
of course.
So as years go by, I think they can replace you.
I was actually of the same opinion, of the same view, Sisipo, at some point. Because if you look at how robots are being built, right, it's just different components that have been put together and then programming kicks in. So if we can train robots to build cars, don't you perhaps think at some point the same robots can be trained to build other robots and still program those robots? And they
That's
can actually,
possible, though.
yeah, and they can actually get with AI, they can get to a point where they implement some form of chip within themselves that allows them to think, you know. And remember, robots can actually, they are more intelligent than us to start with, because they use algorithms and big data for machine learning and all those things, you know. So they know what we don't know, with AI, with access to AI and the internet, they know what we don't know. So I don't know what you guys think around this one. Mr. Nokemani, do you want to come in?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I got you. I got you. Yes, I could add on that by that. Yes, this robotics thing will really take over the world, because I remember also during in this robotics challenge that was hosted by CETA, that we were shown a video of some of the robots that are already created, that possess attributes that are very similar to humans. They have sensations and show emotions, just that there's some sort of sayings that these companies that build these robots are not allowed to use actual facial human
Features, yeah.
familiarization, because I think in somehow they deem it to be in a way kind of ungodly. But as for just the structure and the capabilities, that is something that's already existing. It's just a matter of innovation.
Wow. So now, when it comes to such things, you sit and you ask yourself, where are we going with this? Um, yes, robotics are beautiful and it's amazing. I've seen online now that they've got robotic dogs, and they are for the military, and they can actually even pull dead weight. They can actually pull a dead body away from danger. Apparently, it's something that is being looked at for the military. And you look at humanoids, like the one that was going around on social media with Elon Musk. It's going further and further into the deeper side of the technology. You know, and now, Sisipo, what do you think the future has for us in robotics?
Um, in my opinion, I think it's both advantages and disadvantages of it.
Could
We
you just try to get close to your microphone? We can't really hear you.
Oh, okay, sorry. I'm saying though
Yeah, that's
we,
right.
yeah, you can hear me now.
Yes, perfectly.
Yeah, I'm saying though we can see them as helpful as they are. I think it can also get dangerous as we don't know the future. As you mentioned that they are more intelligent than us, and there's a possibility that they can create other robots that can create other robots, and we do not know the outcome of the robots that can come in future, and we don't even know if they can also be harmful to human.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And just to add on your point, Sisipo, I think we are getting to a point whereby we won't feel a need to think for ourselves. Take, for example, ChatGPT.
Exactly.
Already there's ChatGPT. I don't need to think about something. I just go and look it up and then it will pop there.
Mm,
Even if,
So we're getting to a point where we're just gonna sit back and let them do everything.
mm,
You know.
mm.
So yeah, for me, I also feel it's getting kind of dangerous.
But now,
and
isn't it better? Okay, you can go on, Sisipo. It's fine. You can go on.
I was gonna make an example of the calculator. It's just you can think a calculator is just a minor thing, but the danger that it causes is great because back then our parents were able to do the calculations using that. But for now, I can't even do a 17 times 4 because I'm used to it.
I think they say hard times create tough men, and easy time creates, you know, lazy men. So yeah, certain things we just need to get with the times. The beauty of it is the fact that you guys are in the space of IT. At least you do have the understanding of how these things work. You do have the understanding of how these things are programmed. You know, Imagine someone that has never been in front of the computer having to interact with a robot.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Sorry, just a tiny. Sorry to interrupt
or
you.
you
I
can
just wanted
pause.
to add also that you know. Oh, thank you. Regarding what you recently mentioned, and all those kind of things about the other side of this conceptual idea of the robotics. That what I actually wanted to add was that when one conducts a research on these kind of things, you'd find in mostly everything there are some kind of negative sides of it, and some positive. What's important is when the positive outweighs the negative, and especially in the field of ICT, it's important to develop an agile mentality where one is accommodative of change, as in the ICT industry. You things change all the time. There's always new changes, new updates on components, be it on as broad as the ICT industry can be. Just that I just wanted to add on that, as much as it could appear to be some sort of dangerous, the idea of robotics, that is especially when you one brought up this thing about chat GPT. As for that, my idea of it is that if ever people don't learn to use things the right way, then they will be doomed to experience the negative impacts of it, because there's always going to be things to improve lives for the better, regardless of
That's
how they could possibly impact negatively. So if ever people don't want to be good without being washed, then it's their fate that they are putting at stake. So yeah, that's just gonna be it from my side.
Thank you, sir. And yeah, nicely said. I mean, you look at in the healthcare, robots are doing amazing things. Some operations are being done by robots, and you find out that an operation that could take 5 to 10 surgeons only takes one robot and one surgeon now. You know, and you find, if you go online, you see things like the robots for the disabled people that actually help you stand up, and they can actually sense your nerves and start moving to the direction that you are wishing to move. So those are amazing things that are already happening. But then again, the question of affordability comes into play, you know, because all those resources are not just simply available to everybody, you know. Even when it comes to in the agricultural sector, not everybody has access to those robots. And I think that is part of the reason why even PICTA took a stand to say that we'll adopt the nearest school, and we'll provide a robot to train the kids and mentor them, throughout the whole training and the whole mentorship program in robotics. You know, Affordability is always an issue when it comes to these things. And Mr. Nakeman, are you saying something?
I think for now.
No, no, I'm not saying anything. I was listening to you, just also attending a few of things
Okay.
in my end. Otherwise, I was still listening to you.
Okay. Yeah. So the issue of affordability is a factor that we cannot shy away from, especially for the previously disadvantaged. You know, but in terms of um, people in tech getting familiar with robotics and all that, it is a great avenue to look at and invest yourself in because everything now is getting automated, whether you like it or not. From the vehicle you drive right to your house, it's robots. You know, you get to your house, you find out that some people have those cleaning robots that will move around the house and sweep the house and mop the house while you're gone. And once it's done, it goes back to its charging station. So, yeah, on my side, I think the only thing that could be an issue for us as a nation is the question of affordability when it comes to these robots. Onaba, what's your take?
I think you know my take when it comes to this. Like I hear Mr. Nokemani's view in it, and I hear your
Mm,
view. I understand where you guys are coming
mm,
from and going,
mm,
but it scares me because look at at the video that you showed us in class about the manufacturing of the A class at Daimler.
mm,
The whole manufacturing floor had less than 5 people, less than five, from
mm.
start to finish of the car. Where does
That's
that
true.
put us as a nation?
Mm.
Like, if we don't win as a whole, then we are not winning at all. I feel like we do have a social responsibility, maybe to put checks and balances on the progression of robotics. I don't know what those will be, but there has to be something done, maybe by the government or policies. But I don't feel like it's the way to go. It scares me. It scares me. Remember that you
I
stated that the houses behind IDZ were of people who were employed by the companies down the
Yes.
gate two, gate one. And when
Mm.
you
so
I think we're losing her. She's bringing a valid point. I think she's of the view that robotics are already
guys
replacing kind.
buy lunch, you see a lot of them roaming around.
Okay, we've lost her. So what she's saying is robotics are already replacing mankind because you look at certain areas that are close to industries and these development zones, the informal settlements. Those were the okay. Onwaba, glad to have you back. Do you want to still
Yeah,
state your point?
yes. As I was saying, I feel like there should be
We
something that
lost you.
we're doing differently. I don't know what that would be, but I feel like if we're moving forward, you have to move forward, but think of innovative ideas that would work hand in glove with the current situation that we're in as South Africa, as Africa. We need to do something different somehow. I'm not saying that the innovation and the robotics should be at a standstill just because, okay, certain people or a good chunk of our
That's actually
compatriots left behind.
That's actually an interesting point that you're actually bringing also, which brings me to another thing that I was thinking the other day. Um, with our energy crisis, do you guys perhaps think that all these robots that are working now, obviously when there was manual labor, there wasn't any energy being consumed, and now we've got robots replacing mankind. Do you perhaps think the robotics in the automotive industries and all that also are contributing to the energy crisis that we're currently facing?
Yes, yes. I think they're also contributing because we use too many robots. Even for just a basic thing, we use a robot. For instance, back then we used to do laundry by ourselves. Now we use washing machine. For basically for almost everything, we use robots, and they consume energy because they use energy.
But now remember, I think in that regard, we actually trying to get with the times, and it's technology, it's new developments. And remember, it's more like if you look at the generation of things like your television, uh, at some point there were the plasmas, of which I know for one that a plasma used to consume a lot of electricity. Then we shifted to LED. So with time, the energy consumptions are becoming lower and lesser. Um, Onwaba, you may agree with me. I shared an article with you the other day in the office. I shared an article with you guys that was talking about the plant saving more energy, all thanks to the new robots that have been brought in. Do you remember? I
Yes, I
put it as,
remember.
yeah. So with the new developments in technology comes better and more ways to preserve energy, and in terms of them being consumers of energy as well, yes, they may consume depending on the number that is there, but I doubt that they would be made to consume so much. You know, for example, in agriculture, certain robots can be made to recharge themselves, and not have to depend on uh, being plugged to an energy source or something. you know. Let's get back to what you were saying on Waba earlier on.
Mm.
You were still sharing your own views on how they taking jobs, and that's actually that I find interesting, and I really want to delve deep into that.
Do you have a question for me or?
No, no, no. I just want you to continue from where you left off before you got cut off in terms of the production lines getting smaller and
Ah,
the
but
production. You can go on.
but Dalu, it's evident everywhere you go. Take for instance your McDonald's, your KFC. There's those robots whereby you pay, you do everything, and then you just go. Do you know how many people who are like how many households that are standing because of cashiers, like just a simple job, cashiers, and that job is about to be redundant. I'm just like that, it's gone. I don't know.
Um, that is true. That is true. But now, what do we then do as a nation? Do we sit back and watch the first world countries implement these technologies and running with them, while we, the third world countries, sit and say that we are trying to protect the jobs, we're trying to preserve jobs? Why don't we look into creating more jobs through the integration of these systems into our
Yeah,
everyday life?
I hear you, darling. That's why I said I understood where Mr. Nokin money was coming from, and you were coming from when you said you need to progress with the times and be able to compete with other countries. I understand that, but I don't know. How are we progressing if 70% of people are unemployed? Meaning was whatever we are creating, okay, let's say what we are creating because we want to compete with other countries. How are we competing if only 30% of our population can actually make use of whatever is there and actually enjoy it because the robots or robotics as a whole are created for the betterment of our lives. So, meaning if you are unemployed, chances of you experiencing that is slim to none.
Um, you see,
Also, as a
sometimes.
people,
Okay, good. You can go.
Also to add on what Onaba is saying there, I'm thinking now, um, okay, if robots do take over there, maybe at some point, um, is everyone gonna like migrate into like or move into the tech space? Because like, okay, let me put it like this: if robots do take over, um,
Mm.
is everyone going to move into the tech space in order to be safe, maybe in their career? But even if you are there in the tech space, there are no guarantees that you will be like. It takes years of training to be like good, because as in of mastering be it like being able to be in that space. That's what I'm trying to
Mm.
say.
Okay,
Is it like,
to
is
answer
it
your
gonna be
question,
cool, fair? Yeah.
to answer your question, I think we all saw how the world quickly adopted to everything being digitalized during the pandemic, right? You know, and
Mm-hmm.
if we can do it in such a short period of time, with all the time that we have to look into robotics, what is stopping us? You know, I mean, if we can respond out of shock to a pandemic that changed our lives forever, because our lives will never be the same after that pandemic. So, in terms of coming to terms with technology, do you mean to tell me that it is that hard for us to upskill ourselves and learn new concepts, and be part of the movement?
I don't think it's gonna. I think we can. I think we can be able to.
I think the only factor that we can say could be a stumbling block. Sorry to interject, Gushe.
Okay.
Be with you just now. I think the only thing that we can say it's a stumbling block that we may have is access to resources. I mean, for companies like Pacta, if Pacta is saying that we're willing to adopt a school and train them into robotics and coding, you know, if there was enough resources, there wouldn't be a limiting factor to say that we can only do it for a particular number of students. You know, I think it would just be something that is fully blown because there's so much access to resources. So I think that could be the only factor that we can say that, okay, yeah, it is holding us back from moving and being part of the movement. Other than that, I still believe that we actually are capable as a nation. Africa is filled with brilliant brains, and South Africa, for one, has a lot of brains. And you look at the one of the greatest people in tech. Most of them are from Africa, South Africa, Eastern Cape. They're neighbors. They're this. They're that. So we are very much capable, and we can actually have a seamless transition to a world of digitalization, robotics, and everything. You know, and yes, it will come at a price. Okay, you can go on over.
I want to ask something, Talo. You talked about upscaling and upscaling, ne?
Yes,
Ourselves. Yes. Now my question is,
I'm
to what
listening.
level do I upscale myself if there's AI, like let's say there's ChatGPT that's already existing and also it's going to improve most with time, then haha, like then there's 10 people upscaling and doing the most because they want to compete. Then then there's opportunity. We have two opportunities for those 10 best people. Remember what we talked about. Then what happens to the eight that's skilled to the max and yet doesn't find jobs? And also the jobs that they are upskilled for, the AI robotics can do those jobs. Then what happens?
Um, do we really want to educate ourselves to be employees even though we are the best at what we do and we have all the skills and expertise, we really need to be seeking jobs at that point? I think that's what we should be asking ourselves. Because if you can come up with your own robots that you've developed in Africa and you've structured all the parts and everything are manufactured right here, why do you need to go and be looking for a job? Why don't you look into the business of production? Why don't you look into the business of, you know, coming up with your own program? Let's say you, for example, a developer, you did dev, right? So now you come up with your own program, which is your AI
Mm,
program, which is, if not competing with ChatGPT, even better. Would you then go to
mm,
ChatGPT and look for a job?
mm.
Exactly. So if you are the best, why are you still in the job market? Don't you think perhaps you creating jobs would be you doing justice for the people that are out there looking for jobs?
But would you employ someone if you have a robot or an AI that does the job better than them? Because it's more like a vicious circle if you think about it.
Even though the even though there's AI that will build a website overnight, right? It still needs a human touch here and there. Remember, ChatGPT will not predict what you're looking for. You need to know what you're looking for and you need to know how to look for it.
Mm.
You see. So even if you have a robot that can code the whole night, design websites and programs, it still doesn't need a human touch here and there.
Mm.
You know,
Mm.
remember, it may refer to its libraries to quote on laws and everything when it's developing whatever app it's developing or whatever website it's developing, right? But it still needs that interpretation of certain things here and there from you. It cannot completely do everything on its own.
But that we are talking about things that are existing now. Remember, when we're talking, we said with time they will improve. What if all the stuff that we are saying now would have been the improvements? Then it means that we don't need humans, miss.
I don't think there'll come a time where we don't need humans, eh? Because remember, um, we know where the raw materials are to manufacture these robots. We know the programs. When it needs service, we know. You see, it still goes back to where? To us. Yes, there may be a minimal number of skilled people in terms of these technologies because robots will be doing most of the job. You know, it may, yes, there may be a limited number of skilled people in these disciplines, but um, robots and humankind are more like parallel lines in my view. They'll forever drift together to the same direction. That's just my thinking. Sisipa, what do you think?
Uh, on this one, I'm with Ona. In future, robots
Mm,
will replace a human. For now, they need people here and there to manage them.
yes.
But as the technology advances, um, they will replace people. As they say that uh, in the IT department, you study till you die. So the time we study, we discover more ideas to create advanced robots, of which those robots will replace us in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take for example the time of COVID. At the start of the COVID, they hired people to sanitize. other people. I think 3 months down the line, those people were retrenched because they introduced the robots to sanitize us. You see,
Mm.
those robots automatically replaced everyone that was required to sanitize other people.
Okay, now let's look at it from this perspective, right? There's COVID. This is a COVID ward in a hospital, and it's highly contagious, and people are dying from it. And the cure or the cause is not yet known. Who do you expect to go into that ward and treat those patients? Don't you think robots are the suitable candidates for those jobs?
You have a point.
I hear you, Dalu. I hear you, Dalu. But Dalu, in what world does the world work if the majority lives below poverty line? I think that's the scariest part more than anything. It won't work. It will collapse. You know, robotics is such a scary thing. The more you think
Remember,
about it, the more
I don't
you
think at
know
some
about
point we'll come. I don't think at some point we'll come to a point where the population of human beings is less than the population of robots, unless we going to stop reproducing as human beings and start focusing on producing more robots that we don't need. Remember, robots are made to come and provide solutions to the problems that we have, not to come and replace. Yes or no?
there are robots that are already there for companionship. When you're depressed, they're there. They know
Mm,
exactly why you're depressed. So, what do you mean we need human?
Yes, they are there, and
Mm,
they have their own role. You know, um,
companionship, ne?
yes. Do you know? Sorry. Do you know? Despite the fact that there's cars, there's still people that
Mm,
crave walking.
I Dalu,
You know,
it's just a small percentage. Dalu.
it still counts and it still matters. No matter how small it is, it still counts and it still matters.
Dalu, it's insignificant. If
I
it's that
promise
small,
you.
it's insignificant. Dalu.
No, you may look at it that way, but trust me, it's still very much significant. And remember, when you look at certain things that make your life easy, you need to look at the health effects that it may have towards your life because it's making things easier for you. So that means there's a bit of strength that you don't have to use anymore and a bit of energy that you're reserving. So that means there's a lack of exercise that you're going to be exposed to, right? If you're going to depend on a robot for companionship, at the end of the day, it's just a machine. You
But it's
do
better
need.
suited for you. It's better suited for you. So it's not just a companionship J from a robot. It's better suited for you.
If
It's tailored for you.
okay, it is tailored for you and it tells you
So
what you
it
want to
works.
hear, right?
It works for you.
And it yes, and it tells you what you want to hear, right?
Hmm.
So if you wanted to whisper sweet nothings to your ear, it will definitely whisper sweet nothings to your ear, right? Now, what about someone that wants actually someone that wants to hear real conversations, someone that wants real human interactions, you know? And remember, with all these robots that you're talking about, there's still the question of affordability in play. You know, do you mean to tell me that all of a sudden they're going to become like cell phones where everybody has it?
yes,
It's possible.
it's
Eventually,
definitely.
eventually,
Yes.
yes,
Mm,
eventually, but remember, it's going to take time, yes, and by so doing, don't you think perhaps there's a niche that has been identified that robotics is seeking to address?
What niche?
in terms of these robots that you're talking about, your companion robots and all that? Don't you think it still points failure to us as human beings?
It's still what?
It still points failure to us as human beings. It still suggests that we are failing at some point. Yeah, food for thought, eh? Because if there wasn't a need, there wouldn't be a robot. You see. So that goes to tell you and to show you that there is a need for these machines, and whether you want to use it for companionship, whether you want to use it for cleaning, there is a need and there's a market.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it is a hard pill that we have to swallow.
That is true. So hence we need to. I mean, look at the fertility rate back then. If you had heart complications, you were a dead person. Because back then there was no. You'd find out that a doctor that is supposed to be operating you is currently operating in another state, or in another province, or in another country. You know, right now with the help of robotics, it's just one trained surgeon working on the robotic machine to carry out the operation, of which a surgery that's supposed to last 5 to 8 to 12 hours for that matter is now reduced to 2, maybe 3 hours, you know.
Mm.
And if Simvile wasn't failing as a partner to Onoba, Onoba wouldn't need a companion robot.
But if there wasn't a robot, Nova and Simvila would sit down and look for a solution as human. But now that there is an option for a robot, they opt for the robot instead of sitting down as human beings and find a solution for themselves.
But now remember, the robot was not the problem that caused the distance between the two parties. They had a problem that they couldn't sit down and resolve. And then they both fell in depression and all that. And then the robot comes in to fill that gap. So it's coming in as a fix, a solution, rather than a problem.
They couldn't sit down and find the solution because they knew that there is option B, which is robot. If there
So,
wasn't this option B, they would have sat down and found a solution for themselves.
what you're saying is where there's no options comes lies a solution.
Exactly.
Okay, quite interesting. Onwaba, what do you have to say?
Sorry, I got disconnected. I didn't hear that.
We were still on the issue of robotics interfering with human lives and seeking to replace mankind. Mm.
And I didn't hear that in one line.
Sisipo was saying that the reason why companion robots are coming into play and they're becoming a thing is because partners are failing to communicate and partners are failing to be there for each other. So now, because there's an option of a robot, it's hard for people to sit down and resolve things and work on things.
Because
That's
there's the option of the robot, we see no need to do things ourselves. For instance, me, I can go for months alone in this room if I have my phone. I feel like I don't need people. If I have my phone,
okay.
if there wasn't the phone, I was gonna go out and communicate with people.
But now, do you understand that it's because of such factors that technology keeps on developing and it ends up seeming like it's becoming a dividing line in our lives?
Sorry.
Do you understand that it's because of such um, instances that technology is coming into play? Then it ends up seeming as if it's a dividing line.
Oh yes. But from the beginning, the existence of the technology is the issue. Though we're gonna keep on producing more, but it is an issue.
Okay, now here's a question, right? And I'm sure, okay, firstly, let me ask, what is your take when it comes to robotics in the healthcare environment?
Personally, I- I'm a lazy person, so I'm a big fan of the robotics. By the way, though I'm opposing this topic. Eh, so I think specifically for the healthcare department, they are very useful because there are situations that are very dangerous for human beings. For instance, the COVID situation. I think if we more robotics to attend to those people who were already infected, the virus wasn't going to spread that much because we were going to send the robotics to attend those patients rather than
Mm,
sending other human beings to go there, attend the patients, and getting themselves infected. Yeah.
okay, Onwaba, what's your own take?
I think robotics and healthcare are a good thing. I think our focus should be there, in fact. It should,
In healthcare. So you agree with healthcare, but you're not agreeing with automotive. You're not agreeing with agriculture.
I would say
but
I agree on
I do agree with
I
agriculture, I do. But we have to identify sectors where it will matter the most and bring about positive impact and results. I think
So in the automotive industry, you don't perhaps believe that it
no,
matters the
not
most.
because at the end of the day we are producing the cars, the A classes. So we don't need to manufacture them at a high speed or whatever efficiency. It
But we
doesn't
still
change
need to
anything.
export them. We still need to export them to the world. For instance, the C
We
class
can have
is,
more people for that, most.
sorry,
We can employ more people for that.
and not use robots.
Yes, that's the whole idea.
But do you
We,
understand the amount of errors that will be given in this?
Dalo, I've never heard that Daimler has ran at a loss in this financial year, like before the introduction of robotics. So why would it change now?
Remember, um, when you're doing your costing, if you look at the amount of errors that are made, obviously, when you haven't tried something new, you wouldn't know how best it will serve you, right? So, years back then, they might not have known how much money they were losing. But now that they know the amazing work that robotics does for them, do you think they'd be willing to go and look at that and reflect in the past and say that, yes, at the time, we're not accounting for much loss, so we may be open to looking back at it? It's until you try something new that you get to know how the old one has been affecting you. In most
I hear what
cases,
you're saying.
is yeah.
I hear what you're
So,
saying, but
what's your point?
my point is they were getting a profit. They never said we're at a loss, like we're losing this much. Now, yes, they can say, okay, this year, the years that they had robotics implemented and the years before that, they can say that, okay, we lost this. But I've never heard that they were running at a loss. No.
You know,
So,
if you were saying to me right now, and I'd side with you on this one, if you were to say that,
okay.
don't you guys perhaps think that? as we have robots manufacturing now, doing most of the manufacturing job, these foreign companies like your Daimler and your VW and all that will just withdraw and go and do the production at home. Because part of the reason why they're here, it's because of cheap labor. If you look at the labor laws here and compare them to Germany, to the US, and all that, they're quite different, and the labor rates are also different. Here, the rates are cheaper than there, and it's something that just came to mind, and it calls for concern, because at some point, if you have robots doing all your production, why do you still need to worry and think about cheap labor? That's another thing. That's in the automotive industry. you know. But in sectors like the agriculture, I mean, the Eastern Cape is big on agriculture. I think in the country we have more cows than any other province. We still number one when it comes to that. Yet, when it comes to meat production, I think we're the third or the fourth. So that means we're not farming to consume. But in the agricultural sector, when it comes to robotics, they're a necessity. You know, you look at in most instances when you've got your animals in the field grazing, and a fire breaks out, and you cannot get close to where you can't get close to the fire to see if you still have any livestock on the other side of the fire. Drones come handy. They come in handy, and all thanks to robotics, you can take a bulldozer and run your fence on the other side down for your livestock to be set free. You know. Oh, we almost got disconnected. So yes, I do believe that in agriculture, we just need to get with the times. Automotive, we can look into it, but agriculture is one thing that we really need robotics in, and even when it comes to healthcare, we still need robotics in it quite a lot. You know, it's not all the time that somebody has to go to the doctor for a checkup. You know, we do need these sensors and scanners in our public spaces where they can actually scan your temperature and everything. If your BP is high, there's some form of signals, you know. So, yeah, they are quite necessary. I think that also brings us to the end of today's show. It's been great. It's been lovely. You guys have been great guests. Kutle, you've been experiencing quite a lot of challenges in terms of network. We've noticed, yeah. Yeah, I think we had a few comments, if not one. I'd like to look at them before any other thing. So we've got Apelele Makangumo David saying, I hope you're able to see the comments. Personally, the thing of robots scares me because the more the robots are built, the fewer the job opportunities for us as humans. And I think everyone is concerned about jobs, right? Especially now, we've got unemployment at an absurd rate, and obviously the more robots are coming into the picture, the more jobs are going to be lost. But then now, perhaps it's time we go back to the drawing board and shift to the world of tech. You know, as new systems are being implemented and as everything is becoming digitalized, a lot of opportunities are opening there in that sector. And those are opportunities that we can still take advantage of. So Apelele, thank you for your comment. Hopefully next time you'll get to come and be live on the studio with us. Yeah, I think that brings us to the end of today's webinar. We'll come again next week, same time, same place. See you next week. Sissy, Port, thank you for joining in, Sissy. Kuhle, it was nice having you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. Mr. President, that brings us to the end of our show.
Dalu, you have a message in the comment section.
Pardon?
You have a
Oh,
message
there's
in the
another message. Let's see. Onova is asking us to stay. Let's wait for her.
actually, Mr. President.
Oh, it's actually Sir.
Yes.
Mr. President, over to you, sir.